Hello, this is video 34, and it goes without saying, but I'll say it one more time. We have crossed the line into Python, and we'll be in Python for a while. So what we're going to be looking at for the next several videos, I don't even know how many, are the syntax of Python statements. And syntax, remember, is just the rules for constructing valid instructions in the language. So we've got to get a toolbox full of stuff before we can start doing really cool things. And away we go. How about some comments? C-O-M-M-E-N-T-S. You might think, well, we're starting with something that's nothing, and in a way we kind of are, but comments are not optional. That was comments, for example, are the header block that you put at the top of your Fun Fact Lab program. The format for comments, pretty straightforward. The pound sign or hashtag or tic-tac-toe, whatever you want to call it. And then following that, now remember, I'll write this up here and then talk about it. Ignored text. When I put something in pointy brackets like that, that means it's a format token. That means that's a blank that you fill in. So you would fill that in with maybe your name or maybe a description what the program does. But the pointy brackets means, okay, that's where the ignored text will go. And it's ignored, I'll switch colors for this. It's ignored from wherever you put the pound sign to the end of the line. To end of line. Now you can, I think most of the comments that I did in the example program that I typed in, the comment started at the very first line. It could actually start anywhere. You could put the comment out at the end of a line, maybe to explain one specific statement. The effect of this, the effect of comments, nothing. The compiler ignores comments. Then why do we need them? Well, your bottom line is, if you don't put them in your program, you're not going to get full credit for the program. So there, that's why you need them. No, that's a smart aleck answer. The compiler ignores them. They are for human readers of your program. They are to explain what the hey this program does to someone that's reading your source code. Remember all those terms, the software terms? Source code means that's what you've typed in your higher level language Python. Compiler, that's the program that's going to try to take what you typed in and turn it into machine language. If you typed it in correctly, the compiler doesn't worry about this. You don't even have to spell words correctly. You could misspell your own name and your program might still run perfectly. So the comments actually give you a lot of flexibility there. Don't view them as optional though, please. Okay. I might have to come back and browbeat you about comments later, but for now we'll say that that's enough. Moving right along, a definition of a term that we're going to need and use a lot, an identifier. I-D-E-N-T-I-F-I-E-R. Identifier. It's a string of characters used by us when we're typing in source code. I'm not going to write all that. A string of characters, C-H-A-R-A-C-T-E-R-S, barely read my own handwriting, used to name a variable, whatever the heck that is, or a function. A function. Whoa, that's even worse than a variable. I don't know what that is either. Or a symbolic constant. This is getting worse and worse and worse, isn't it? Actually, all these weird terms that I've listed here that we haven't defined yet, you spell constant and put dots. What do they have in common? Here's what they have in common. A variable, a function, a symbolic constant. These are all things that the programmer has to invent names for. So that's how I'll describe it. A string of characters used to name a variable, yada, yada, yada. Anything that the programmer, P-R-O-G-R-A-M-M-E-R, must invent a name for. I don't know that invent's the best word there. Concoct, that's even worse. Must invent a name for. Anything that you're responsible for naming has to be named with a valid identifier. Of course, it's got to be valid or we wouldn't be talking about it in the context of syntax. A name for. It's not an English class. I'll end with a preposition if I wanna. Okay, and I did. String of characters. Do we know what that is? Well, yeah, characters, remember, those are pecking at the keyboard. A, B, C are characters, 1, 2, 3 are characters, plus sign, minus sign, question mark, those are all characters. String is just a sequence of those. Type in a bunch of them in a row, and voila, as if by magic, you'll have a string of characters. Here's some examples. Well, you know what? Before I do examples, I'm going to run out of board space, but I'm going to put the rules. Got to have rules. Rules for constructing valid identifiers. Don't, Trout! Number one. Rule number one begins with a letter. You have to excuse Trout. He's protecting the household from bodily harm. 2 consists of letters, digits, letters are ABCs, digits are 1, 2, 3s, and the underlying character only. I'm going to start abbreviating character as char. So if you see me write char up here, that means character. It's just a lot shorter word to write, and we probably will be writing character a lot here. Consists of letters, digits, and the underlying character only. So what that's saying is, it's really telling you what you can't use. You can't use a question mark. You can't use a minus sign, not as part of an identifier in Python. It would break the rules. So we're restricted to that set of characters. Rule number 3. It's nice when things come in 3, huh? Can't be a reserved word. Can't be a reserved word. R-E-S-E-R-V-E-D. Reserved word. Well, it'd be great for us to avoid reserved words if only we knew what they were. You know what? I'll put a dash over here and maybe provide an explanation. A reserved word is just a word that already means something in Python. You can't come up with a new meaning for something that Python is already using. Reserved word. A word that already means something in Python. STHG for something. Main. You can't have a variable or a function named main. Main is the name of the whole program. You can't use that for something else. And is another one, even though we haven't seen that in a program. AND. There is a logical and, just like bitwise and. You can't use and as the name of the variable. I've completely run out of space, so I'm going to get rid of comments. Now, my comments look just like they do to the compiler. That's supposed to be an insider joke. It wasn't very funny, was it? How about some examples in green? Haven't had an excuse for a color change in a while. And we'll contrast and compare. These are okay identifiers to use in Python. These are not okay. We could use this. We, lowercase we, love with a capital L, love to, digit 2. We love to. Over here, this is not okay. Fly, all in lowercase letters, and the ampersand character, it, capital I, shows. I think that used to be the United Airlines slogan. We love to fly and it shows. We can use this part. We love to. That doesn't break any rules. That does. I'm going to get these up here and then we'll think about them and see what rule we're breaking. That's one pair of examples. Here's another one. AL8. Yes, I could use AL8 as a variable. Not okay. I can't use 7-up. I could use leopard. Leopard. Leopard is a valid variable. It's a valid function name. It's a valid identifier. I could use it for anything I got to use a name for. Not okay, can't use def. Well, let's see. How is this okay? It begins with a letter, has nothing but letters and digits, and we love to is not something that already means something in Python, whether it should or not. Fly and it shows. That was almost okay, but that ampersand character, that breaks rule number 2. Thank you for playing, but you're out. Bye-bye. Okay, AL8. Still okay with the rules. Now, even though I might look like in some of these I have a space, space is not a valid character in here either. You can't have any 2-word identifiers, or 3-word, or 4-word. AL8 is okay, doesn't break any rules, that breaks a rule. Even though all the characters entered are valid, it breaks rule number 1 because it has to begin with a letter. You know where we're going with this? Leopard, yeah, I could use that. Def, can't use that. That breaks rule number 3. Def, like define. Define the main program. Here it is. Take a look, Mr. or Ms. Compiler. Def already means something, so we can't use that as an identifier of our own. I'm going to slip in yet another color. Today is another multicolor day. I'm going to slip in an aside here. I slipped something up on you. Aside. Kind of a pale blue. I hope you can read that. Aside. Definition. It's not a technical definition. You know what? It's not even a definition. This is going to be an example. Example of what's called camel casing. C-A-M-E-L-C-A-S-I-N-G. Camel casing. Like uppercase, lowercase. Here's an extreme example. This, all in lowercase letters, is with a capital I, my with a capital M, variable, V-A-R-I-A-B-L-E. All squashed together into one word like it's German or something. But camel casing means every word except the first one is capitalized. This is an example of what we in the biz call a convention. C-O-N-V-E-N-T-I-O-N. Not in the sense of a bunch of businessmen get together outside of town and get drunk and get in trouble with their wives. Convention in computer science means we all just agree to do it that way, so it's easier to read each other's code and understand it. Camel casing is an example. It's not strictly enforced by Python. You don't have to do that, but we all agree to do that, so our Python programs look nice and professional, and it's easier to read the variables. This is my variable. That just pops out at you with those capital letters. And I've made about as much of a case for camel casing as I know how to make. See what I did there? Of course you did. Pretty awful. Well, I filled up the board a couple of times, so I'm going to quit while I think I'm ahead, and we'll go on to the next thing in the next video. So until then, I'll see you online.